Hate that fear, I've seen you here before. You keep coming back and knocking at my door. For so long, I've been trying to soar, with my hands tied up and my feet held to the floor. But I'm feeling like a breakthrough is coming. Yeah, a breakthrough is coming for me. 'Cause my heart, it was made to fly. Destiny can't be denied. Tired of waiting, I am overdue for a breakthrough.
We are excited what God is doing, and so if you're visiting, if you're newer, you haven't been through the whole journey, what we've been on, I want you to know this should be encouraging to you. God is moving in Mountain Lake. God is moving in this church. He cares about his people. He honors faithfulness and trust and obedience, and so we want you to get a taste of that this morning. And if you've been, along the journey with us the last several years, this is just an exciting time to see a breakthrough take place and to see God moving in this church in an exciting way, and so we are thrilled to be at this point in this juncture here this morning. Now, why are we in this process? Well, we discovered several years ago, actually, at my first board meeting, and this would have been almost exactly 6 years to the day. I came in September. We came in September of 2007. It's been here 6 years now, and mentioned the first board meeting, we really need a new church building. You could have mentioned that in the interview process. Good to know. Not something I have any experience in. And yet through this, then beginning in 2010, the church began to grow. This land becomes available. We buy this farmland on the west end of town, and the things began to develop because we have needs for a new building. And some of those needs, the first one is in our areas of space. We are limited in the space we have. If your sanctuary is more than 80% full, people come in and go, I got to sit on the front row to sit with my family. I'm going to either not go to church at all or I'm going to go somewhere else. You need to have that extra space. And in our sanctuary is immediately one of the issues where we could use more space. But even if it wasn't just that, there's other needs. One of those areas is our nursery. Our nursery can hold about 2 kids and 2 adults, and then it's maxed out. We want more kids than 2 kids in the nursery, amen? We want lots of kids, and we have space for it. We believe we're ready for it. We had designed facilities. We say, God, we want children. Then God will bring those children into our care. And so we want more space for nursery and also for preschool. Kids are getting to an age where really they're too small, too young for nursery, not quite ready for kids' church. And so they're in this in-between age, and we want a place that could be connected with the nursery but be designed for them, because preschoolers and nursery age kids play with different toys, and it just gets interesting when they're together all the time. So in addition to that, though, we don't have a lobby. Right? You come into church this morning, bam, you're in church. Like, you don't have time to get your coat off and like you're getting preached at because there's no area to even get a break. We need some place to go where you can enter the building and have a lobby and have a foyer area and have that gathering space separate from the sanctuary. We don't currently have that. And then the classroom space. The Sunday school, adult Sunday school meets in this room in the morning. So if Don's run a little late and you're coming, you've probably run into, hey, their Sunday school still going, because we have to meet in the same room. We would love to have a separate classrooms, an area that would accommodate Sunday school and those types of activities. And then finally, office space. We have one very small office in the corner over here, no secretary office. So when I've had some people come in to do some of that help with secretarial stuff, this is their office. We set up a little table right over here, and they just work in the sanctuary. We would love to have more office space for us. The second area is in access. We, of course, have stairs. Lots of stairs for a church our size. We don't want any stairs. For people that have mobility issues, this is encumbering. Even for Nathaniel coming to church this morning, having to get carried in to church in the wheelchair, lifted up the stairs. We don't want to have any limitations. We want the biggest, most open access to the gospel possible, which means no stairs. You're not having to come upstairs to get in the building, more stairs to get in the sanctuary, a whole bunch more stairs if you've just got to go to the restroom. We want to get rid of those. And then the other area is parking. We have very little off-street parking, and anyone, when you go to downtown areas, what's the worst part? On-street parking, right? Parallel parking. You want to know there's a spot for you. I don't like going downtown areas where I'm not sure I'm going to have off-street parking, and you got to go hunting for a spot on the side of the road. We want to have lots of parking available. So those are the needs. Those are the reasons we began this process where God opened the door to buy this land that we could build on, and worked with Miller architects and builders to figure out what do we need, what can we do, and to get this process going. And then over the past 3 years, we have seen God do incredible things getting us going toward this, and it's been exciting to see what God's done the past 3 years. The first area that God's really helped us and we've seen growth. We've seen new families come in, new faces. The church is growing, but not just numerically, it's growing spiritually. The move of God, people's lives being touched, hearts being changed, people growing closer to Jesus, the spiritual growth. And we want to have the best facilities available to continue to foster that spiritual and numeric growth. The next area is in the cash that's come in. It's just incredible the amount of money that's come in over the past 3 years. We've seen our general fund giving substantially go up. We've seen our missions giving go up. And amongst all that, over the past 3 years, over $200,000 has been given to the building fund. That is incredible. The people we talk to in financing and in the district, just amazing. They how big's your church again? And it isn't that one person gave some giant $150,000 check. This is just people being faithful, doing what God's asked them to do, continuing to give. And when you're faithful, it just keeps growing and growing and growing, and God keeps blessing. So that now we have in the bank right now over $400,000 in the bank right now. Unbelievable. 3 years ago, if you had said we have over $400,000 in the bank, I'd say there's no way. But we just kept being faithful and kept trusting the Lord, and we're at where we're at today. And the final area is in favor. We have seen tremendous favor with the businesses we've worked with people in town and businesses that want to help us and facilitating things even on that farm side. We were looking into the needs for sewer infrastructure with the utility commission. Just favor everywhere we've turned that's confirmed that God is in this direction we're going in needing us to get into a new building. God is confirming this as we go through this process. But I'll admit to you that it's all, as much as we're exciting and God is moving and I'm excited here this morning, my emotions haven't always been that way. Because the truth is, in this project, we have always known that we need to raise a big chunk of cash, and our goal has been $500,000. And I'm amazed we're as close as we are to that goal. But with that, we've known that we still, unless God sends some giant check our way, and it hasn't happened yet, and I'd still love for it to happen, but it hasn't happened yet, we still have to finance the remaining portion. And we're hoping to, finance what the remaining portion and get the cost down that between the cash raise, what we could finance, we can get going. That's where we're at. What has happened is the challenges we're facing is as construction costs aren't going down. The economy's picking up, construction costs are going up, price of steel is going up, things are picking up, and that's impacting construction costs significantly. In addition to that, we've discovered that a lot of site work has to happen on that farmland. We knew there's going to be a lot, it's even more than that. Initial estimates were around $400,000 in site work. Now, we've got that price down, thankfully, with help from Lorenz Excavating, but it's still, we just realized that I'm watching this as a pastor going, okay, we're not there. God, you've put a huge amount of money in. God, we know this is what we can finance. There's a gap. And so I feel like we're standing on the edge of this cliff with this chasm between us, and some people are saying, just go, just go, just go. And I'm sitting here going, we're going to go and we're going to fall in that chasm and it'll be the end of everything. And there's a reason why I have gray hair showing up. I shaved most of it off this week because it was getting really bad. And then I got gray hair in my beard. I'm only 32, people. This isn't fair. All right? But it has weighed on me. And the points where I just say, God, I can't bear this burden anymore. It's your church. It's your planet. Put it on your shoulders. You do the breakthrough. I'll just be obedient to what you ask of me. And that's the road I've been on for a while now. Trusting the Lord, saying, Lord, you bring the breakthrough. And I can sympathize with the words of Paul. Paul is in the book of Acts, chapter 16. Beginning in verse 6, he's on a missionary journey. His heart is to preach the gospel, to reach the lost. That's what he wants to do. Go everywhere he can and preach the gospel. And he's trying to do that. But in verse 6, here's what he discovers. Paul and his companions traveled through the region of Phrygia and Galatia, having been kept by the Holy Spirit from preaching the word in the gospel in the province of Asia. When they came to the border of Mysia, they tried to enter Bithynia, but the Spirit of Jesus would not allow them to. They want to go to Asia, this huge place where it now has most of the population of the world is in Asia. They want to go there and plant churches to preach the gospel, and the Holy Spirit says no. They try to enter Bithynia. The Holy Spirit says no. And sometimes I can relate where it's like, okay, we're going to go. We're going to reach these people. We're going to reach that apartment building. We're going to do these things. And God says no. Why? Why would he say no? So they head off a different direction. They try to do what they can. And I relate where I feel stuck. Anyone ever been in a traffic jam? I don't just mean like because they got some cones out here on 3rd Avenue, right? That doesn't count, right? I mean up in Minneapolis, big highway, and it is a traffic jam like this. A few weeks ago, we were driving in the Twin Cities. We were up there for a little while. We had left the kids with a babysitter down in Mountain Lake here. And we were getting on 169 in near Eden Prairie, 169, 494, heading south. Got a couple of miles, and all of a sudden we hit this kind of traffic. Completely stopped, bumper to bumper. For the next 3 miles from Eden Prairie to the Minnesota River, 3 miles, it took us 1 hour and 15 minutes to go 3 miles. We're texting the babysitter, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry, we're stuck in traffic. The side roads are all backed up because everyone's, that can try to peel up the side roads and backed all those up. We weren't going anywhere. It was very frustrating. And sometimes I feel like this is where we're at. We're on the right road. We didn't make a mistake on what God told us to do to this point. We know where we're trying to get to, but we're stuck. But you know what that great feeling is? When finally you get past the accident, you get past the construction, and the cars begin to disperse, and it's just open road. Oh man, does that feel good. And the gas pedal goes down, and you just go and you try to make up some lost time, and you get where you want to go. And that's what I feel today, is that God has brought us to a place now where we didn't make mistakes in the past, but there's been some slow up, there's been some traffic jams. Like, okay, God, how do we break through this? What are we supposed to do? And God is bringing us to a place now where we can begin to move in the direction as He leads our path, because He will speak to us, as I believe He has spoken to the church and to the board and now all of us this morning. And that's what happened to Paul. He couldn't go to Asia, but here's what happens. During the night, Paul had a vision of a man from Macedonia standing and begging him, come over to Macedonia and help us. After Paul had seen the vision, we got ready at once to leave for Macedonia, concluding that God had called us to preach the gospel to them. So they're going on this path, they're trying to get to Asia, roadblocks, they go where they can, and then God speaks and says, here's the new direction, head to Macedonia, here's where you're going, here's what you need to do to preach the gospel message, because God has a plan for Paul, and He's got a plan for this church, and that's what we want to be a part of, because here's what we have to realize. This is God's church. And if we believe this is God's church, it's not my church, it's not the board's church, it's not the Assemblies of God's church or Superintendent St. John, right? The church isn't this building, it's this group of people gathered here today. And you don't serve me and you don't serve anybody else but Jesus Christ, your Lord and Savior. He is the head of this church. It's God's church, and if it's His church and we want to be obedient to Him, then everything is for His glory. It's God's church for God's glory. And we've always wanted this building project that God gets the glory. He did the breakthrough. His creativity, not our plan, not our money. God's plan, God's money. And if we honor that, we realize this is God's church for God's glory, then we need to follow God's plan. God's plan. That He has a plan. He's always had a plan. He's known. And as we look back, we see God's handiwork, and we see now what He's moving us into. If we want this to be God's church for His glory, then we need to follow God's plan. So what is the next play in God's plan? That's what you're wondering. As you know, a couple of years ago, we started doing our Wednesday night Bible study over at the Good Sam Village, because we were using the carpenter shop for young outreach to teens, youth ministries. And that's going well. We kicked things off, had a great start for the fall just this last Wednesday. Well, with that, we got to know them. The great things are going on. And now, great turnout. People are coming to Sunday morning service that have been going over there. Now, as you know, that they built the lodge, and everyone that lived at the Eventide got moved to the lodge. That's connected. So now we can minister to that group in addition to the Good Sam. But with that, as you realize, they vacated the Eventide building. Now, this is not a conducive building for our ministry needs. And I thought maybe there's some chance we could make it work even temporarily so we could sell this building. But I walked through this building. There's no good open space. There's lots of big posts and cement walls, and it's built sturdy, but there's just no open space to have a sanctuary. In addition to that, the roof needs to be replaced, and the elevator is near the end of its life, and you could sink hundreds of thousands of dollars just trying to get this thing usable before we even convert it to a church. That's not really a good option. So I just passed by on it. It's empty. They want to give the building away if it's for a nonprofit, not for a for-profit business. Then one day, I'm driving by on 2nd Avenue, and I noticed something I'd forgotten about. There's a back to this building. The back of this building was built in 1996. The other portion was built in the 1940s. 1996, this was built as a memory care unit. This is for Alzheimer's, dementia individuals, that they can have a safe place to live and be cared for. And begin to look at this building, and just to give you another perspective, this is the aerial view. So the part to the south here, the pitched roof, that is the memory care. The part to the north is the older part that needs would need a lot of money to make it usable. So we're talking about this part of the building. This part of the building is 6,100 square feet. To give you some frame of reference, the church we were endeavoring to build on the farm site was 7,000 square feet. Just this is nearly the size of the church we were trying to build out there. There's a lot more square feet there than I think anyone realized, or than even I realized before looking into this. Walking through that building, you realize this is perfectly set up for classrooms and nursery and meeting spaces. Take out a few walls, redo some things. This is really nice, usable space for a church education children's youth wing. What we believe is the answer for the breakthrough is that we would knock down, haul away the old part of the building, the part to the north there, haul that away, clear that out, and then put up a pre-engineered metal building attached to the what would be the education youth children's wing that would be a sanctuary, kitchen, lobby, bathrooms, offices attached to what's already there, and give us substantially more space for less money in a better location. This is what we're excited about, and there's a lot of reasons why this makes some really, really good sense for us to do as a church. The first one is the financial side of things. In looking at the cost over there, between the escalating construction costs, the massive site work that included running a tile line all the way across Kurt Jansen's field, and that was assuming that the golf course would not stop us from doing that because of their own separate concerns. It was just going to be a lot of work at least $1.3 million. And this is where the gray hair came from. Lord, I know we're in your plan, and I know you've done everything so far, but that's a lot of money. In contrast, we are confident with the use of some donated labor, some volunteers for certain parts of the project, some RV Maps volunteers, as well as people in the church and the community, that we can get the cost of renovating the memory care part to a children's education wing and adding the pre-engineered building for $900,000. Now we're back in range, or we can get going on this. You see why we're excited? And here's the next thing. So it's $400,000 cheaper. To put that in context, if you took our annual missions budget and you took the money we're going to save and you spent it out, it would be 20 years worth of missions giving we're going to save by going to this location from the other location. That's a lot of money and a lot of impact we can put somewhere else. That's why the board's getting really excited about this. That's just the first reason. The second reason has to do with size. This was going to be 7,000 square feet. Really smaller than we needed, but we shrunk it down as tiny as we could. The next option that someone actually proposed, no one from the church, was, what if you just built a sanctuary and bathrooms? So no kids ministry, no nursery, no offices. How do you have church, right? I mean, you could have Sunday morning service, but there'd be only old people because there'd be no place for kids, and we don't want to go that route. We want to reach the whole family. So here's the deal. With that building, between what the existing part we would keep, what we would add, it would be 80% bigger for less money. We're going from 7,000 square feet to 12,750 square feet. This is what we really need, and we can get it for less money. And this is what's so exciting, is this is what we have the space to really do full kids and youth and children's and all those outreaches we want to do. Where we can have adult Sunday school classes and kids Sunday school classes and all of this going on at the same time without having to try to put big divider walls in the sanctuary, which costs a lot of money and don't really add you any more space. 80% bigger. The next reason why this is exciting to us is the location. We're going to go from the proposed location originally was on the far west end of town over here. Yes, good for those apartments. We can still reach and minister and reach out to those apartments. But here we're centrally located, actually a block closer to downtown, right on the main drag here, right on the parade route during powwow. You can see it from the park. So during Kids Fest, we can say, hey, we're the little church between the two big churches. Instead, hey, we're that new church right over there. Come and join us. You can see it from the park. Great location. The next reason, and the most important one, is what this is all about. Isn't money, isn't location, isn't size. It is about reaching the lost. And it is a tool to preach the gospel and to love children, to welcome them into the family of God, and to help people and encourage people. And it's just a tool. It's just a building, because the church is the people, but it's a place where we can have the best possible outreach to reach the lost of our community. That's what we want this to be all about. And so we feel confident that this is going to save us money. It's going to be bigger. It's going to be at a better location. It's going to help us reach the lost. That this is good for the community, and it's good for the kingdom of God. It's good for the community because instead of building a brand new building and putting a whole bunch of money into dirt, we're going to bring new life to a building that is hard for people to walk by and see sit empty. And see it, a good piece of town. It's over half a city block between the building and then the extra parking across the alley. That we're going to say, you know what? We're going to do something that's going to add value to the community, that's going to increase the beauty of downtown by not having a building that's decaying. Instead, we're going to bring new life to that place, and we're excited to reach our community and to impact the kingdom. It's good for the community, and it's good for the kingdom, and we're excited about this taking place and being a part of our community, because that's what it's all about. Now, how are we getting there? What's going on? What is the team of people that's making this happen? Well, the first team of people that you need to know about is your church board. They were 100% behind this from the get-go and excited and backing this. We've had 3 board meetings in the last month just to put all this together and to be on the same page. And so I actually want them to stand. First, Dick Sargent, if you would just stand. We're excited that Dick is on the board. We appreciate him being on there. Whenever you can sit down, Dick, whenever the building's getting used or rented or people are borrowing the dunk tank, so that I'm not having to leave my family for all that. He's my go-to guy to open the door up and help him with stuff. I so appreciate him being around and helping me out with things and bringing me the mail, and I really appreciate him on the board. Then we've also got Sid. Sid, if you would stand up. We appreciate Sid. He is also our board treasurer and brings the wisdom of having run a business here in town. It just brings a lot of years of experience and wisdom, and we love having him on the board. And then also Tony. We appreciate Tony. He just has an energy and just a countenance about him that we just appreciate his attitude and your muscle. Appreciate the muscle. You had something to say?
When the pastor brought this idea up, we were all beyond an inkling of a shadow of a doubt. Yep. We knew this was a breakthrough right here. Yep. We knew it.
Yep. And we waited not because we like keeping secrets. Trust me, this is the most painful secret to keep. For actually a month and a half, this has been in the works. But we wanted to make sure the questions have been answered, and this is going to go through, because we didn't want to propose this, get everyone excited, and then Good Sam say, oh, never mind, we're not giving you the building. Or, oh, never mind, there's some reason you can't build there. Like, we had to make sure this is actually going to work. And then it just kept working, and we got more excited, and here we are to tell you this is going to work, and we got more details of why. And then finally, we'll introduce Don Pankratz. Appreciate him on the board as well. He is also your board your board secretary, brings the wisdom of having run the DAC and been a part of this church for many, many years as well. We appreciate him and his hard work. But what's most important to me, what I appreciate most about these men, is that they all deeply love Jesus and love worshiping him and following his leading and hearing from the Lord and seeking after him. Yeah.
A whole ton of miracles have occurred. And I'm not going to share those. I'll let Pastor do that as he feels is appropriate. But you guys are going to be excited when you hear the miracles.
Yeah. And that first miracle is part of the team that he's brought along. The team that he's brought along from outside the church, first is Tim Sabota. He's the director of the Good Samaritan Society of Mountain Lake, and he has been tremendous in helping us make this happen. We've had multiple times where we've had to meet over at the Eventide location to let in different people to look at the building, architects and builders and people that have looked at it, and I keep calling him up, can you come over and open up the building again? He shows up. He has been the one pestering because he doesn't get to make the final decision. That's all on a regional level. And so the regional office makes the final decision to award the building, how that's going to be handled. But Tim's been good at sending emails, keeping the ball rolling. I was pestering a gal by the name of Rosalind Willinga that is above him in this whole process, that she was talking to the powers above her. And I didn't know he was also sending her emails and bothering her. We're both probably just got sick of us. But he's been great at helping make this happen, and even called me when the final details came through at 4:30 Friday afternoon. I mean, this is down to the wire to pull this all together. He's been great working with. He then, the next guy, you may recognize him. This is Phil Bueller Construction of Butterfield. He and his company built the memory wing that we're going to remodel. So he has all the drawings already. He's completely familiar with the building and the site. He's worked with Good Sam on all the remodels of the building we'll be taking away. He has just been tremendous to work through. Now, I have to admit, this is just a funny story that I hope you can laugh at now. But someone had mentioned this guy to me before. Well, had already hired Miller. We weren't going to change course with that. That was not a mistake. We went with Miller. But whenever I drove by Bueller Construction in Butterfield, there was never any cars there. It was just this empty building, and I just thinking, this is during the recession when I first was driving by, and if there's no cars there, I mean, Butterfield, he's probably just some 85-year-old guy that just keeps the building because he can't sell it, and if he got some work, great. This is my image. I was really, really wrong. I got to repent for that terrible assumption, because this is a really nice guy, great to work with, sharp. I'm thrilled to have him on our team to be our general contractor for building this building, using local contractors whenever we can, willing to use volunteer labor, anything. He's going to help us get the cost to $400,000 to $900,000, because that's what we need it to be at. He's tremendous. And the other reason why I'm thrilled with Phil is that he introduced us to a guy by the name of Corey Brunton. Brunton, and he is the CEO owner of Brunton Architects. It's up in Mankato. They do a lot of work, a lot of buildings. He goes to the Assemblies of God Church in Mankato. He did the architectural work for the Assemblies of God Church in Mankato, which is a pre-engineered metal building like we are endeavoring to build. He has also done the engineering work for the Assemblies of God Church in St. Peter, the one down in Austin. I didn't even know he did the one in Austin. And when I said, if I could kind of hint at the look and feel we're going for, that's going to be modern but warm and inviting for the whole family, Austin's church is what I want you to go see. He said, oh, we did the work for that one. Right? Yes. This is just great. He gets, Assemblies of God. This is the kind of ministry we do. It's the kind of mentality we have. He's been great to work with. He knew we're under a time crunch. And so I said, we need presentation ready to go on September 8th, but we can't pull the trigger until we know this is going to work. I can give you about 2 weeks. They did in 2 weeks what Miller spent 3 months on. Crunching. They worked over Labor Day weekend. I felt bad. He's like, we're going to get this rendering in over Labor Day weekend. Okay, because to help us out. He's been terrific to work with. And then finally, I want to introduce you to Brad Omott. He is a Mathowitz construction. He's pulled in a connection through Jim Warwick because we need someone that can demolish a large 3-story building. We first went to Brett Lorenz because we wanted to work with him because he's been so great to work with. And he said, honestly, it's just a bit too big of a building. He'd have to rent equipment from Mathowitz to even do it. And it would take him a long time because we found out this building is going to take 320 loads to haul away. 20 trucks going all day long for 9 to 12 days. This is a big job hauling this away, which was one of the things we had to figure out is the cost of hauling that away because that is part of the game, and we'll get into the cost stuff in just a moment. This is a great team. We are thrilled by these people. They have been all wonderful to work with, easy to get a hold of, very helpful. And so here's what the timeline looks like. How do we get there? What are we going to do going ahead? The first thing that's going to happen is that we acquire possession of the building for $1. If they're going to sell it, estimated market value is $423,000. We're getting it for $1. Isn't that all right? They're going to empty out the furnishings at the garage sale on the 20th and 21st. I encourage you to go buy some stuff and help get it out of there. Okay, don't buy stuff, put it to the building fund. But anyway, we're thankful they're going to empty out the furnishings, but there's some equipment and things and materials in the building that we're thankful are still there. Then we get to sell the farmland. We get to use the money because we're now getting land for free. We all like free. We're going to sell the farmland and use it for building. We're going to say we're going to have more money. So that's the second exciting thing. So pray that we get the right buyer and that they give us $10,000 an acre for it. Okay, they're probably not going to do that. But we just pray that they buy it and that'll be a good thing. And the value of land's gone up since we bought it, so that's going to be good. The third thing, we need to pray for a buyer for this building and for the carpenter shop. We can sell them together. We can sell them separate. We just need to sell them. If you know anybody interested, we'd love to do it. Not through a realtor, so we can get the full amount of cash going to the building project. We would love to find a buyer and pray that God brings a buyer. Who believes God's going to bring us a buyer? Amen. So keep praying and believing God's going to bring a buyer like He did for the parsonage back in 2007. And the final thing we're going to do this fall is we're going to salvage some stuff. When I brought Phil into the building, when one of those trips that Tim came over, he said, "Wow, there's some stuff you could reuse in this building." He said, the entry doors here, they look brand new. Double entry with the vestibule, with the heater for the vestibule, and the push button ADA automatic opens. He says, there's $10,000 worth of stuff right here. Because you're building new, and the designs aren't drawn, we can incorporate them into the design. You can use this stuff. There's fire alarm equipment. There's different things. There's oak doors we can use for classrooms. We're going to reuse some stuff in that building to get our costs down. We need to salvage that stuff. And one area where we'll need some help is it's only going to be cost effective to salvage it if we can, with no labor cost, free donated labor, we can get some guys to go in there and before the building is demolished, pull that stuff out and store that so we can reuse it for later. That's what this fall looks like. The good Sam said they want the building in our possession by October 15th. October 15th. This is why this was such a rush job, is we had to get everything figured out, all the questions answered, and they want the application in hand this coming week. So we went to the latest possible date we could to schedule this meeting to give 4 weeks notice that we could get it in their hands, and we have the building by October 15th. Now, late fall, early winter, that's when Mathewitz is going to come in. They're going to take out the old building. They're going to bring in fill for the basement they scooped at, fill that in on all nice and level, have it ready to go. And then we'll need to also secure then the north end of the building we're keeping, seal that up for the winter, and make sure it's heated and ready to go so the pipes don't freeze. That's what will happen in late fall, early winter. Over the winter, still work to do. We got to finish the engineering drawings for what's going to get built, finalize all the final details of that, acquire the financing we need. We've already been in talk with AG Financial, Church Extension Plan, and get this, Bremer Bank came to the Assemblies of God up in the cities and said, we want to help lend to Assemblies of God churches and nonprofits. Are there churches with projects we could talk to about lending money? When the bank comes to you, that's really encouraging. You know, we're going to see if United Prairie wants our money, wants to give us a loan, but if they say no, we've already been in talk with one of the vice presidents of Bremer Bank who is interested in giving us money and making that work. The next thing, we got to file for permits with the city, get that all lined up, and then call for bids to the subcontractors to figure out what it's exactly going to cost us and make that take place so that in the spring, we're going to build. And the commitment of the board is we will, if we worst case, we want to build the size building we're talking about, which is actually 6,650 additional feet we're going to add. Worst case, we will shrink that down to get the cost down to make sure we can build, but that's last resort because you can't push those walls out later. We want to go toward more volunteer work. If you're willing to put in some hours, if you've got some skills, with certain areas, there's some masonry work that needs to get done, there's tiling work that needs to get done, sheetrock that's got to be put up, help us get the cost down. Phil's willing to work with volunteers because we will start this spring when the FOSS is out of the ground because we want to be in this building before the end of next year. Anyone excited at the thought of being in a new building next year? So here's where the numbers fall. There's the expense side of things. Most of it is with the additional building. We're working to get that price down to where we can keep within that $900,000 mark. And then there's the renovation cost. We got to put a parking lot in to add that we want at least 50 parking spots off street. We'll actually probably have close to 54, what we're looking at. But excited about that. Then there's the big question. What's it going to cost to demolish this building? When Good Sam was looking at doing it, because if no one is going to buy or take the building, they were going to look at demolishing the part that we're going to demolish. And their estimates to demolish that and then permanently seal up the end of the building and make that a standalone unit was $250,000 to $300,000. And first I'm like, ooh, that's a lot of money to go toward demolishing. So we're going to say, well, let's just see. Talk to Lorenz, talk to Mathewitz, see what they can do. Mathewitz came, looked at the building, crunched the numbers. Brad came out, and they were all with lowering some tipping fees and doing as best they could, got it down to $180,000. Okay, this is a little more we were hoping, but this is good. We're excited. We got it down to $180,000. I said we'd really like it, like no more than $150, but we'll see if we can make $180 work. So that's the end of that conversation. I get a knock on my door, actually a call first, a few days later, and he says, I got a piece of paper for you. You're going to want this in hand for your meeting. Talk to the boss, talk to the owner. He's willing to knock down another $30,000 to get to your $150. So they essentially just gave us a $30,000 check getting that down. Now, as we're working with Good Sam, realizing, okay, if we can't get the number cheap enough between construction and demolition, this isn't going to work. We're not going to propose it. The demolition is one of the question marks. If that's too high, we can't sink a lot of money into demo. If you were willing and looking at spending $250,000 to $300,000 to demo that and to seal that up and to possibly to sell it or use it yourself, is there any chance you could help us even a little bit with some of that to help us out? And initially I said, I talked to the boss. He's not interested. That's, understandable. They're not flush with cash. We're not flush with cash. They're trying to be wise and good stewards. Finally, they rushed to get this letter signed and approved by their CEO to us. It showed up at 4:30. I'm opening the PDF email, just praying, Jesus, please, some help. And they said, agree to the terms of including $50,000 toward demolition costs. All right? I didn't know. They're not flush with cash. Don't get that misconception of Good Sam. But they had an insurance claim money set aside if they had to tear the building down. So we're actually saving them hundreds of thousands of dollars, but to help make sure it'll happen on our end so that we do take the building, that they don't have to sit with this large building they can't sell, they're giving that chunk of money that they had set aside to help pay for the cost of demolition. That's like $80,000 we just received in the last 2 weeks. That's huge. So we're going to put less money into demolishing that than we were going to put into dirt work over there, so all the money can go into building and having a bigger building, which there's where that comes in. So the revenue side, we are right now at $400,000 cash. We have we believe we can take out a loan for around that $350,000 mark, putting us at $750,000. And then now, over the next 8 months, over the winter, we believe through selling the farmland, selling the church property, and additional money that we're going to hope and pray and believe will come in from offerings. Between those 3 sources, actually 4 sources, the fourth one being there's some equipment in that building that's worth some money that we believe we can sell, we don't need to get a little more cash. Between those 4 sources, bring in another $150,000 to get us to the $900,000 mark so that we can start this spring. Now, one final question you probably have in your mind is what happens with Miller Architects and Builders? They are not aware of the details of what we're pursuing. They are aware, Dick Wares is aware, that there is an opportunity to get a free building donated and to rehab and reuse that site for a new building. And I just said, you need to be aware of this, what happens. He said, well, he reiterated, we are in the business of helping churches succeed. We want what's best for you. We don't want you to stay with us. If it's going to hurt you, you're not going to get anywhere. If this is going to help you get a new building, you have our blessing and our support. We're not, they're not like, yay, you're leaving. They don't want to feel that. But they say it's not going to have any ill feelings. We're going to part company. We're going to set sail without them on good terms. And they made that very clear. We paid some money to them. We do, for the work they've done. They've been great to work with. We're not going to get that money back. But that money wasn't wasted. And here's why. The board strongly reiterates that the Miller Architects and the farmland was not a mistake. It was the first step in God's plan. Because 3 years ago, the Eventide building wasn't available and there was no talk of it being available. So can you imagine if I got 3 years ago and said, okay, we're going to raise money for an imaginary building we think is going to be available in 3 years? That's not going to happen. God knew that, but he knew this moment was going to come, this breakthrough moment. And so over the past 3 years, Miller Architects and Builders has helped us figure out what we need in building, because the size of the sanctuary, the size of the kitchen, that stuff, the lobby space is all real similar with the new addition we're going to build. So they helped us with that. They helped us get our capital campaign organized that allowed us to raise $200,000 cash, because if we hadn't done that, we'd be starting a capital campaign today for the next 3 years and starting sometime in 2017 or 18. But that wouldn't even have worked, because I don't think Good Sam would have given us the building if we said we want the building so that in 3 years we can use it. So God knew all this. So we put this perfect plan in place to raise money and raise excitement and get things figured out so that more quickly we can hit the road and get going on what God has for us so that we can see the results. And now I want to jump back to Paul, where he had a new path to go down, a new road. He hadn't made mistakes, but God directed him to Macedonia. And here's what happens now in verse 11. From Troas we put out to sea and sailed straight from Samothrace, and the next day we went on to Neapolis. From there we traveled to Philippi, a Roman colony and the leading city of this district of Macedonia. So he gets to Macedonia, and we stayed there 7 days. On the Sabbath we went outside the city gate to the river, where we expected to find a place of prayer. We sat down and began to speak to the women who had gathered there. Now wait a second. What was the vision he had again of Macedonia? Of a man begging him to come. And yet they get to Macedonia and they get to where God calls them. They go out to this place and it's a bunch of women. Did he hear wrong? Did God say the wrong thing? No. For whatever reason, Paul needed to hear and have a vision of a man. I imagine if it was of a woman begging for him to come, he'd be like, oh man, somebody else wanting to marry me again. I'm not going down that road. Some desperate woman, no way. I bet pizza, maybe I'm getting lonely, so I'm having some dream of some woman. Whatever the reason was, God gave him a vision of a man. But when he got there, the plan was actually to reach women. As a result, see here's what happens in the following verses. Of those, one of those listening was a woman from the city of Thyatira named Lydia, a dealer in purple cloth. She was a worshiper of God. The Lord opened her heart and responded to Paul's message. When she and the members of her household were baptized, she invited us into their home. If you consider me a believer of the Lord, she said, come and stay at my house. And she persuaded us. So actually we have here Paul and Luke, the writer of this, is with him in this moment, saying firsthand what took place. Where God had a plan to reach a people and to do his plan to reach the lost, but it involved some direction that we might think is a little confusing. He said man, but it was a woman. He said buy the land. He said build, Merle, and I believe that. But it was to prepare us for the moment that he says, okay, but here's the full picture now. Because it's about reaching the lost. And that's what Paul was all about, was reaching the lost. That's what this building project is about, that we can begin the process of having this new building next year. Am I the only one excited to have church in that someday soon? Right down the road. New life to the community, new building, excited to make that take place. To give you some more perspective on what we're talking about, this is the initial floor plan design. It's on the boards. We'll show you that. We've got a booklet of all this information, so if you want to have all this details, we've got a booklet to give you at the end of the service. So the right-hand side of the L here, this is the existing building. You're talking about having the green part there is a coffee area. This is going to be bigger than the little coffee area we're going to have in the other location to have smaller gatherings, meetings, women's ministry gatherings where you could be enjoying coffee while you're gathering. If you need more space, we have the two large classrooms on the south side here to have for any kind of meetings, kids meetings, women's meetings. If we need more space, like 60 or 70 people, this room on the upper right-hand corner is actually currently 3 rooms we're going to knock out. It's going to be nearly 50 feet wide. Much larger than any classroom we currently have, and allow for kids' church, youth meetings, or larger gatherings where we don't want to use the whole sanctuary as a gathering space. And then the pink in the middle there is your kitchen. You got offices, bathrooms. The sanctuary holds 200 and is the nice fan style format that we were wanting to go for. The next page here, you're getting an aerial view. This is again the building. On the left-hand side is 3rd Avenue, facing the Parkwood Apartments and the clinic. And then 8th Street is on the bottom edge there. You can see the entryway that's already existing that would remain on the middle of that building. So this is what it looked like, adding a lot of parking. The footprint of what we're adding is much smaller than what's already there. We don't need something that big. The footprint of what's there is 100 by 120. We're doing 70 by 95. So it allows us to add parking across the front there, parking across the top, and then in the back where we would have. Now we may not pave all this to save money. We may still do some gravel initially, but that's what it would look like to have adequate parking. And again, here's just a shot of the building. The tall peaked area there, that is the building we would add, the pre-engineered building. And then the part there on the far right side is the added space. So here's what it comes down to. The way this is going to happen, the way we're going to make this take place, we're in a new building, lies in your hands. God has given us the breakthrough. We got to act. We got to put it into motion. So what can you do to make this a reality? The first thing is, if you're a member, vote. We're going to have a vote in just a few moments. We wrap things up and get going for our special business meeting. Stick around and vote. I encourage you, even if you're not a member, still stick around and ask any questions you want. Look at the pictures and everything. Get a booklet. But if you're a member, please stick around and vote, because they want to know. They said in their message, Please let us know first thing Monday morning the response of your vote. They're anxious to get going on this. The second thing is pray. God has given us this breakthrough because we have been praying as a church. We've been believing, but keep praying. Praying for favor with the subcontractors. Praying all the details work out because we are starting in the springtime. And the third thing is please keep giving. We still have some more cash we want to raise. We believe God's going to do it through multiple avenues, selling of property and such, but we still have some more money. We want to take the smallest loan possible because we don't want to have a big burden of a mortgage payment every month that's limiting what we can do. We want to take the smallest loan possible, do most of this cash. So please keep giving, both to the building fund and your general tithes and offerings, because if the part that we need financing, they look at your general tithes and offerings giving for what they believe you could handle with a loan payment. And so if those dip, if those go down, then they say, well, we're not going to be able to give you as much. So that's been super great the last 3 years, growing every year. We wanted to keep growing because that's going to really help us just bust the door wide open and start this spring. Those are the 3 ways you can help so that we can get behind the wheels of the car to an open road and go where God's called us to go and reach the lost. Now, in a moment, we're going to have a vote for everyone's welcome to attend. Just the members can vote. But I want everyone here. Children, I want everyone here to just a moment be able to say, I believe in this. I support it. I want to be in that open road and going. And so what we have provided this morning is a little token to take with you. Really fancy here. They're just little cars. But what I want you to do is take one of these little cars home with you and put it somewhere on your nightstand, bathroom sink, cup holder of your car, wherever the desk at work. Put it somewhere where you'll see it often. And this reminds you to pray for the building project, to be excited, to thank the Lord in your prayers. Don't just ask Him, but thank Him for what He's done. Be praying, be excited, believing we got an open road. We are moving ahead because God has given us the breakthrough.